What is going on, everybody? It's your boy Aaron B. I was struggling a little bit, but we're back. We're back. What is going on? It is Taco Thursday, Cowboys versus Raven Talk. We have a special guest for tonight, Samuel Njoku. Will be in here soon. But before we start the episode, we gotta start the show. Already struggling, but it's all good. It's all good. But we got to get into our sponsors, and our first sponsor is W Energy. You need a caffeine boost for your next workout or a late night editing session or a big exam? Try W Energy Supplement. Use promo code touchdowns to get 10% off. It is on the, let me get that banner going. I am on the struggle bus right now, but it's all good. We're going to keep it going. But then into our next sponsor, and that is SeatGeek. The football season is officially underway. Take advantage of these promo code tacos touchdowns to get $20 off your first purchase. Try to save every little buck you can, especially when you go into these games, because you know they're gonna get in your pocket a little bit. Why don't you say $20 off? That could be helping with getting the parking or whatever game you go to. But shout out to our sponsor, W Energy. Before we get into the Cowboys versus Raven talk, we got to talk about this game against the Saints last week. Ooh, it was a rough game on both sides of the football field. I know a lot of people want to blame, of course, Dak, and quarterback always gets the blame, or the coach, or an R. It was a group effort. Let's just be honest. Let's just keep it a buck. It was not one of those games we were expecting. We think you were going to get a dub when it wasn't. It was a dud. 44-19 at our first home game. Usually we do well at home. Not this day. Not this day we did. Dak had 293 yards, a touchdown, and 2 picks. And the run game was basically non-existent. We had Rico Dowdle with the lead runner with 7 carries for 30 yards, 0 TDs. Zeke had 6 carries for 16 yards. And Dak had 12 for 2 carries, and it just goes from there. It was lackadaisical when it came to the run game. It was nothing to brag about or anything like that. Very disappointed when it came to that part. In the defense, man. The defense in the run game was terrible. I was looking at film on in a couple of plays where literally the gap integrity when it came to the defensive line was not there. Where literally the center would take out Eric Kendricks or any of the other linebackers we had. It was you when it comes to defensive alignment, that's your thing. You're supposed to set the gaps and everything so your linebackers can run free and shoot the gaps. But if the linebackers' duty is basically doing your job and then their job, it's not gonna work like that. That's when these running backs like Alvin Kamara had over 100 yards and 3 TDs and almost averaged 6 yards per carry. That can't happen because this team we're playing against this week, they like to run the ball. What are we gonna do when it comes to that situation? That's one of my biggest worries. What are we going to do in this run defense? Don't want to get too much into the to my keys to victory when it comes to this, but we gotta we gotta brushing it up on this. Like you gotta make adjustments. You can't just talk about it after the end of the game. That's easy to do. Can you make those adjustments now during the game? Like after halftime, okay, we need to move this. We need to step our game in this. We did not see that in this game. It was it was quite disappointing. And then you didn't have your tight end Jake Ferguson, who was out with the knee injuries. Possibly could be back this week. I'm glad they didn't try to force him to play this last week because you don't want that injury to further prolong. And we didn't have Jake Ferguson. Going into my next take is we have CD. Yes, CD had okay. He had 90 yards for receiving, but that connection with Dak and him are not there. They really haven't been together this throughout the preseason and everything because contract disputes. We're not going to go back into it. Oops, almost knocked my headphones off. And Brandon Cooks had a couple of catches, but it wasn't nothing to brag about. Jalen Tolbert was our second receiver when it came to that. He had 82 yards and 6 receptions, but he dropped a couple of good catches. And Jalen Brooks, man, that was. I think we need to come to a understanding. Jalen Brooks is not our wide receiver four. He's a good wide receiver 5. He values the special teams, but he doesn't have that breakaway speed. I think there needs to be a chance for Ron Flournoy to play. He has the NFL size, the strength to be blocker and has good speed as well. He could be that guy that could be at this point in the season. Let's start making adjustments now. We have players that could have the opportunity to to take that opportunity, but when it comes to the Cowboys in certain situations like that, we wait until the last minute and everything. But we did make a move this a couple days ago. Carlos Watkins is back with the Cowboys. I like this addition because of Jordan Phillips is out on for a few weeks with the wrist injury. Let's see if that helps. But there's a lot of work when it comes to the team. It's a good team, but there's some missing pieces on this team. And then we're added pieces until the last second. So you're expecting players that you signed 2 weeks before the season to make an impact. Week 1 and week 2, they're still adjusting to this defense. They can say what they want, but it's still an adjustment. Yes, you're getting in shape in the off season, doing your workouts and everything, but football shape is a lot different than workout shape, and that's showing on film. And it's not a good look, but yeah, this game had me a little. A lot of us Cowboy fans like, bro, this was supposed to be a close game, not a blowout game where we're losing to the Saints 44-19. When I looked at the Saints looked like a good team. We was just figuring out, are they a really good team or were they playing against a really bad team? And how it looked, the Saints were more prepared for this team. And then they have a formidable offensive coordinator who was a part of the Shanahan tree, and Clint Kubiak, also his dad used to be a head coach as well. So he's been around a lot of great offensive minds. So they're getting the ball quickly, efficiently. Derek Carr actually looks like a really good quarterback. I know it's week 2. Don't tell me to pump the brakes. I know. I'm just saying, as of now, Derek Carr looks like a really good quarterback in that case. But let me see, getting into before we haven't came in yet, but we can still talk a little bit about this, man. It wasn't a good game at all. It was you expected a lot from this team, but it just didn't happen this week. But we'll talk a little bit about before our guest comes in. What these? Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, so we got a special guest for y'all. It is Cowboys Ravens week, and I got my guy host of. Let me sure I get it right. I got to introduce our special guest, host of Ravens Talks podcast. My guy Samuel Njoku. How's it going?
Pretty good, man. It feels good to be here. You
Yes,
know,
sir.
week 3, very important week for the Ravens, and I'm sure a very important week for the Cowboys as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was over here venting about the last week's game. I'm glad you came here. I was kind of bringing myself down a little bit, but it's all good.
I know what you mean, man. I know
Yes,
exactly what you mean.
yes, sir. Before we get in deep into the show, how did you get into sports media?
Interesting enough, I actually got my bachelor's degree in pre medicine.
Oh, yeah.
I took a year off between pre medicine and med school, and I was writing a novel, and I got a literary agent, and he got me in touch. He was buddies with a guy who was a Ravens fan who was working on a examiner.com, which is a now defunct website that was kind of like Bleacher Report mixed
Okay.
in with athletics.com. So they automatically gave me a gig. We worked with the Baltimore Ravens for a year to check out my stuff. They're very uh, selective in who they bring in, but they liked my stuff after a year and they let me into the facility. And after that, I got some work with CBS Baltimore. They started to like my stuff. Examiner.com partnered with them with a few stuff, and they liked me enough where they brought me in full time. And I did that for a little bit. And then in 2017, I decided to go back into medicine, went back into school, finished that. And then after I graduated, got back into the media, worked with Sports Illustrated for a little bit, covering the Ravens again. And then I decided to start my own podcast.
Nothing wrong with that. So you started from pre med, got into media, got the degree, but you're like, I'm sticking to sticking to the media business.
Of course, yep.
Yeah.
Loved it
It,
too much.
Yeah, when it comes to media, it's fun and stuff. It's hard. I know it's hard work and everything, but when you see it at that on like on uh, in podcasts or just
Hmm.
writing, it's just like, man, I'm glad I'm doing this type of
Yeah, it's dope. It's a nice experience. And now in the new year, in 2024, just within the last few years, podcasting is definitely taking lead content creation between fans. fans of teams are more inclined to listen to these podcasts more so than even the main media. So definitely a good time to start up if you're interested in doing it.
Yeah, absolutely. That four letter network is not the same like we watched back in the days. Who we
Exactly.
like all the greats we used to look up to and everything. It's like we don't get that now. But when it comes to
Mm-mm.
podcasting, you getting that nostalgia feel when it comes to sports media, and I think that's why a lot of people listen to podcasts.
Yep.
Yeah. So my next question is, if you could pick one former Ravens great to add to the current team, who would it be and why?
Ooh, that's an easy answer. That would be my man Marshall Yonda, who just got nominated to be uh, potentially a Hall of Famer this year. He's a guard and played for the Ravens. Steadfast, just great guard, and one of the most underrated players I think in NFL history. The Ravens could certainly use him right now with the play of the interior line. So he would be a definite great addition to the lineup if he was available. But a little bit too old to play now, but we'd love to have him.
Yeah, I think he's like 70 pounds lighter now, so I
Oh
think
yeah,
he's yeah. So that's definitely a good one. I wouldn't expect that one, but that'd be a good addition for that offensive
oh
line
yeah.
for sure. So my next question: where are is tacos and touchdowns? So what is the best tacos you ever had and where?
Ooh, best tacos I've ever had. So I have two. One, my wife makes the mean chicken taco, but
That's a
if
great
I
answer.
don't want to give too much credit to her, but in Las Vegas, there's a spot called Taki Taco. They make a great queso taco carne asada, and it's just great. It has avocado in there, cheese, which I love on my tacos, and fresh carne asada, which I have to have on all my tacos, and it's delicious. In fact, I haven't had one in a while. And I think I might go back next Tuesday.
Hey, nothing wrong with that Taco Tuesday for
Taco
sure.
Tuesday.
Yes, sir. So my next question is: when Coach Mike McDonald left to become the Seahawks head coach, what was your initial reaction to when they promoted Zach Orr to the position of defensive coordinator?
I was heartbroken. I literally felt like I lost my high school sweetheart. I just loved Mike
Oh,
McDonald, being a guy who looks at film after each game. I just loved what he was doing, and you could definitely tell that there's been a bit of a drop off in that since he left. So I do think that with his departure, Zach Aurora was probably the best choice. Anthony Weaver was a close second, but because he wasn't selected, he moved on to the Miami Dolphins. I think that Zach Aurora has a chance to be one of the greats. I mean, he started as a player and made his way up, and Coach Harbaugh loves that type of tree to have on his resume. So I'm not surprised by the hire, but man, Mike McDonald is sorely missed, especially now that they've given up a fourth quarter lead against the Raiders last week.
yeah. Because I was surprised that Anthony Weaver didn't get the job because I thought he was the shoe in, and
Yeah.
but the Zach Orr I could see that like he was on the team, like you said, he's a younger guy too, so you're getting another young mind on this team, and
Hmm.
I think through some times he should be a really good defensive coordinator. Just to take him a little bit to adjust into the DC position.
I agree.
So over the past two games, the Ravens have surrendered over 500 passing yards to address this issue. Does the secondary need to make adjustments? What is the root cause of the secondary struggles?
I think it's a little bit of what we just talked about. Zach Aurora, the new DC for the Ravens. Well, the Cowboys going to make it his third time ever calling plays on any level in football, not high school, not college, not the pros. So it's an adjustment period for him. He's in a very aggressive minded coach. He was like that as a player. So the Ravens have been playing very much aggressive style of football, and that's leaving the secondary a little exposed to potential slants, drags, and double moves. So I think the approach would probably be best if they stay back a little bit, be a little more conservative in their approach to the game plan, and pretty much force the offense to make a decision. A lot of these offenses are dealing with safeties, too high safety looks, and dink and dunks are the name of the game now. I think the Ravens would be better served if they went through that approach, something that Mike McDonald did quite extensively during his time in Baltimore.
You almost had me thinking about what Mel Kiper just said about the two-eye safety
Don't
thing.
get me talking.
Yeah,
Crazy.
yeah. Like a lot of teams like to pass the ball. Having two high safeties is what you need.
Exactly.
Yeah, I knew when you said that. Like, if I go on that, I know we'd have like a 20-minute discussion about
Uh
that. So,
huh. For sure. I
yes,
can go
sir.
on all day about that.
Absolutely. But among like the talented players on this defense, such as Kyle Hamilton and Namdi Matabike or Raekwon Smith, which rising star do you expect to join the ranks of these names?
Odafe Owe has looked really good. His pass rushing acumen has increased
Yeah.
extensively. this year. He showed some flashes in 2023. Him and David Ajabo, who struggled with an injury prior to being even drafted here. Those two are looking really nice. If I had to give an edge, I'd give Odafe Owe the clear edge as a potential superstar in the making. His just ability to pass rush is just taking a huge leap forward. So I think Odafe Owe has a good chance of joining that company.
Yeah, that's definitely a great name. It's
Yeah,
crazy that the Penn State they have these super athlete edge rushers coming through
crazy.
almost at least once a year or something like
Hmm.
that. So then my next one is getting into the offense. When the Ravens signed Derrick Henry this past season, what was your initial thoughts, and how do you feel how they utilized him these last two games?
I was super excited. I thought that he was one of the more underrated signings in all of football. I thought that what he brought to the table was a great yin to Lamar Jackson's yang.
Yeah,
But so far, they've tried to use him. But as you mentioned, the offensive line has been borderline atrocious, especially the interior line where Derrick Henry loves to go with that inside zone read. That's his bread and butter. And without good play on the interior line, he's definitely susceptible to getting tackled in the backfield. They've tried to stretch it out, do more of an off tackle approach, maybe some stretch runs, but that's not his game. I mean, and even with that, you're succumbing yourself to only running on the left side and knowing that the right side is a definite liability. Teams are going to overload that left side and force you to make decisions with your arm with Lamar Jackson as opposed to using Derrick Henry. So they got to get the interior line settled. Once they
yeah.
do so, I think Derrick Henry will provide more juice for this offense.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I know a lot of people think it's Derrick Henry's lost a step. I just think it's just the offensive line in the general. Because if they can get that adjustment, you could definitely see that Derrick Henry you seen with the Titans. Kind of hopefully we don't get to see that homecoming of Derrick Henry this week. But he can after he plays against the Cowboys, go ahead, ball out. Like had that last struggle week, but we'll see when it comes to that part. But
Uh-huh.
is Isaiah likely slowly becoming Lamar Jackson's safety blanket? Because Mark Andrews still continuing to rehab from that injury last season.
I think Mark Andrews is close to form. He did suffer an injury during a car accident. They aren't making too much deal of that, but that's something to watch. Also, these defenses are really blanketing Mark Andrews. They're really focusing on him. They know that they love that Lamar Jackson loves to go to him, and that's leaving one-on-one matchups with Zay Flowers getting some action, and Isaiah Likely is another guy who's really making an impact. Now, I'm not sure if moving forward teams will decide to, hey, maybe we shouldn't be doing this to Mark Andrews because of Isaiah Likely's success. But the Raiders had success doing so, and Isaiah Likely didn't have quite the game he did against the Chiefs. So I'm not sure if that will be the Cowboys' game plan. But to answer your question, I think he has become that safety blanket. But if your team is thinking of blanketing Isaiah Likely, prepare for Mark Andrews to go for 100 yards. So it's a
Yeah,
good problem for the Ravens to have with two stellar tight ends to deal with.
yeah. Having the two tight ends, especially that can take the top off of defense, that's something you gotta definitely worry about for
Yeah.
sure. But my next one is getting into Lamar Jackson. Given Lamar Jackson's modest two passing touchdowns so far this season, what are your thoughts on this play? Is it an issue with the offensive scheme, the personnel around him, or just simply it's just the third week of the season?
I think it's a little bit of everything. I think in week one, you saw him struggle early because of the play of the offensive line. But as the game progressed, you saw that the defensive front of the Chiefs got tired and winded, and they gave the offensive line a little more oomph to their
Yeah,
push and gave Lamar Jackson a little more room to throw the football. But he was still a little bit antsy because of that pressure that Chris Jones provided. So he missed a couple of throws in the red zone that would have added to his touchdowns. And you're seeing more of that in that Raiders game. So I think once he gets comfortable, he even admitted it to himself. He's not as sharp as he would like to be at this point, but maybe as the weeks progress, you remember they didn't even have these starters play during preseason. That has something to do with it. I think all of that factors in, but the yardage is there. The Ravens are one of the top yards, per game in the league right now, but they're just not able to make it get done in the red zone. So I think once their red zone offense gets better, I think you'll see the numbers rise. But I'm not too concerned with Lamar. So far, he's looked pretty good.
yeah. When it comes to like the early season, like you were saying, like a lot of these players didn't get to play in the preseason and everything, so they all getting adjusted playing and all together. So
Yeah.
I think that's the main thing is like when I was watching the Chiefs and got to see a little bit of the Raiders game, like that's like the main thing is like the red zone, like making
Hmm.
those touchdowns. But it still looks like a formidable offense. It just takes a little bit of adjustment and everything. But getting into the meat and potatoes, and like my last question is, heading into the game against the Cowboys, what are your top three keys to securing a victory? And additionally, are there any individual key matchups that fans should keep an eye on during the game?
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it all day. I guess the offensive line would be my first and foremost thought. I think the Ravens are going to have to make some personnel changes. I think Micah Parsons is too dangerous of a pass rusher to leave the talent on the field that they've had the last 2 weeks. So if they're able to make some adjustments personnel wise and get some guys in there that can be a more formidable matchup to Micah Parsons, then that will bode well for the Ravens. But if it's the same old line that we saw the last 2 weeks, Micah Parsons is going to have 3 or 4 sacks. It's just as simple as that. I think the Cowboys are hoping they go that route with bringing these guys, Voorhees and Failele and Makari as your old linemen. But if they were to switch some stuff around, I think it'll be a little different. A matchup that I would think would be good would be Brandon Stevens and Marlon Humphrey against CD Lamb if he does in fact play. I'm not sure of his status as of now, but I think he did not practice on Wednesday. I think that would look good because Devontae Adams had his way against the Ravens, not necessarily individually, but the Raiders did a good job of moving him around, getting them on one-on-one with specific cornerbacks, and I think if the Cowboys were to do that, maybe against Brandon Stevens, he'll have some success. I know Nate Wiggins, the cornerback for the Ravens, rookie from Clemson, he did in fact practice on a limited basis after suffering an injury due to a car accident himself. So if he plays, there'll be a little more wiggle room for Zach or to grow. And then the third and final thing, I think this is going to be a great game. I've been hearing it from multiple sources that this is likely the game of the week. So it may come down to a field goal. And Justin Tucker has missed his last 2 field goals from 50 or more yards. It may come down to a long kick to win this game. And if Justin Tucker is going to be the guy to do so, you'll hope that for the Ravens' sake, that he gets his act together. It could be Cowboys win.
Yeah, I feel like whoever wins this game, the kicker is going to be the MVP of the game because I think
Yeah.
that's going to go down to the wire. Tucker's been in this league, has been one of the best kickers. Brandon Aubrey's trying to get into that level, but he's still got a little while. But it's good to see there's 2 consistent kickers, but I think it's going to go down to like a field goal or
Mm-hmm.
who has the least mistake and who can run the ball efficiently.
Yeah.
I think that's going to go down to. But that's all I have. But I appreciate you, Sam, for being on the show. Before I let you go, where can they check out your podcast?
Awesome. Yeah, you can find me on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Ravens Talk Podcast is the name of the show. You can find me on YouTube at Ravens Talk Podcast. I'm also on Instagram at Ravens Talk Podcast and on Twitter/X at Ravens Talk Pod.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you. And I got a link tree down below, so definitely give him a follow. He definitely has some great content. And I will be back next Thursday. I may do a reaction after the game, good win or loss. I may do a quick reaction on Facebook or on IG. So y'all be on the lookout for that. But this has been Tacos and Touchdowns Live. Y'all have a good one. Peace.